It's hard to find these questions. All right. Okay. Okay. It looks like Ariel Title. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name improperly, but my question is combining chords, i.e., what can you play in the right hand over what in the left? Polytonality, I guess. Well. Really what that's going to depend on is basically two things. Okay, what you can play in the right hand versus what you can play in the left hand. If you're playing the melody of the song, okay, or you're accompanying somebody who's playing the melody of the song, you need to be much more cognizant of what's going on there. You know, like you just can't play anything. So I'm thinking about My Funny Valentine. So it basically is this line cliche of like, right, so you have C minor, major 7, C minor 7, C minor 6. Okay? And the melody, C. Okay, so that's the basic melody. That's all I'm going to play over is that much. Okay? So with this C minor major 7, okay, well now I could say, all right, well, do I really want to play a C minor major 7 or do I want to play something else? You know, well, that really is going to be dependent upon the melody here, okay? Because if I start changing this chord, it's going to conflict with the melody. Now, if I have just my basic 7th chord like this, now how can I break this up into my two hands? Well, it also depends on where the melody is going to be. And this is sometimes kind of a stinky part about playing piano, right? Is that you have this melody, it's like right here, it's like, oh man, it kind of like, it's just in a bad section of the piano. So sometimes what you could do is just move the song into another key, all right? So that makes it a little bit easier for you to voice these chords. But if you have to play the melody down here, so there's maybe not that much that you could really do down here other than play simple chords, all right? So if you're going to do, like, you might just end up something simple like that, where you just have the root, the 3rd, and the 7th. Then to the root 3rd, 7th again. To the root 5th and 6th. Root 3rd, 5th, and 6th. So you see here, my chord voicing is kind of constrained by where the melody is. If I want to do the melody up here, now I have some more options. Some more options, and what I did is I brought the melody up an octave. Okay, so that's me playing the melody or playing, you know, behind an instrument that's playing the melody. If I don't have to worry about the melody, now I can like. Have some more fun with my chords because now I can branch out. I can say, you know, let me do something like that. Here's a real nice voicing for a C minor. I'll do it down an octave just so you can make sure you can see. There's the 9th, the 3rd, the 5th crushed right in there, and then I have 9, 5, 9. When I do a root 5 down here, then a nice big chord. So there's a nice voicing right there, but let's say that the melody was right here. So it's like I'm playing all this stuff over the melody, it wouldn't work. Okay? So if you're playing the melody or you're behind somebody, accompanying somebody who is playing the melody, then you have to think about that with your chord voicings. If you're not, then you have some more freedom. Now in terms of like what you can play in the left hand versus what you can play in the right hand, a lot of this starts to depend upon personal preference. There are certain, you know, things that are common. Like left hand, a lot of times you're not going to do something like this because this interval is too low, right? Maybe you do the root and the 5th, maybe you do the root, the 5 and the root, maybe you do the root, the 5th and the 10th or the 3rd up here if you can reach that, okay? And then, you know, then you can start to add in your available tensions, like on a minor chord, the 11th sounds nice, 7th, 9. nice sounding chord right there. You know, so like using those 4 chords, C minor, major 7, I just moved that B flat up to the B natural. Go to C minor 7. Now notice what I did here. I could have kept that same chord voicing for C minor 7, but I changed it to that. Why? Because, well, here, let me play it for you. So, what happens if I go back to it? It's kind of like, it loses some of its luster after going back to that chord. So instead, start with that first one. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay, got a little bit of motion there. And then, maybe something like that. I did that tritone substitution, then A7, leading me down to the A flat. So, anyway, let me take on another question here. Let's see, did that one... Maybe too basic, but interested in some basic ideas about doing fills off chords during pauses in a melody. Not too basic at all, right? That's always something that students are looking for is, you know, how do I fill in that space? Now, I'm not sure why, but I get the sense that a lot of complexity has been added around this subject. Okay? And the reason I say that is because I see, like, I'll see other teachers, some of the lessons that they do, and like, fills and runs and everything. It's almost like it's like this whole separate thing of piano playing. Like, learn this skill. It's improvisation is really what it is. You're improvising. When you're doing a fill or a run or whatnot, you're doing an improvisation in there. Okay, you're putting some something improvised in. Now, when I say improvise, it could be something that you've worked out in the past. Okay, and and that's fine. Like for instance, Oscar Peterson. I heard him do. Now, of course, I can't do it like Oscar. I mean, I'd have to warm up a little bit more to get. But he does something like this is on a D minor 7 flat 5. And what does he do? What is that? Take a look at those notes. On a D minor 7 flat 5 chord, I'll play the D minor 7 flat 5 down here so you can see it. And what are these notes? If they're not the same thing except for the C, right? So basically you can look at that as an F minor triad, okay? But really, it's the 7th, the 3rd, the flat 5, and the 7th of your D minor 7 chord. So a lot of times what players will do is that they'll play just chords. They'll arpeggiate a chord. So you might have something like something like that. Okay, so you have again on My Funny Valentine. So you see how I can maybe I'll bring in that C minor as the 5th, the 7th, the 3rd, the 5th, and I might just arpeggiate it up. And then if I'm playing solo piano, I can really kind of get really dramatic with this. And I don't have to play in time the same way as if I was playing with a group. So I could do something like this. So you see how I really play that much more rubato and I add in some more space. What did I do on that C minor 7? Just basically took my C minor major 7 chord voicing and just arpeggiated it up starting from the 5th. Held down the pedal to get some nice, to get that ringing. On a C minor 6, just basically did this. Now I can also, create some little variations there. So you see what I did? I did outer notes and then inner notes. This is all on that C minor 6 chord again. So the G to the E flat, and then the A to the C. The 5th to the 3rd, the 6th to the root. Okay? So and then here, just went right up my G altered scale. I can like, you know, I can get as flourishy as I want with this. See how I'm doing these like these straddles where I'm going from the B and the G, that 6th to that 6th. Again, now what is this? Again, that's that C minor major 7 chord voicing. Sorry. Here I have the A7, but I'm coming down. I'm thinking coming down that A flat major, right? Which is kind of interesting on an A7. It gives you a flat 9, 7, sharp 11, and sharp 9. And I go down to my A flat. And so hopefully what you're seeing there, right, seeing and hearing, is that I'm utilizing my chord tones. So I'm working out those arpeggios. Is there any one set pattern? No. So how do you practice this? Right? So first of all, apply it to a song. Here I was just applying it to My Funny Valentine. Okay, a couple of chords, a couple of measures of My Funny Valentine. You could work just a couple of measures. This is often where we kind of get into trouble when we practice, is we try to bite off too much. We try to do too much all at once. You know, just take that much that I was just doing. Like, what other variations can you come up with? So now, there I have to apologize, because I went on too far there, right? Kind of getting into it, and I went on a little bit too far. So you might just take just that C minor to C minor major 7, C minor 7, and C minor 6, that section, just work that. Try coming up with different variations, right? When you find something that you like, write it down, all right? Write it down, because that starts to be, that you start adding that to your bag of tricks, okay? Your bag of tricks is like the stuff that you know. It's the stuff, you know, it's like, you know, you put it over your shoulder, and when you got a gig, you open up, bam, and there you go. Like, here's another lick, here's another lick, here's another lick. Because when we improvise, it's not like we're sitting down and just, you know, like we throw our arms up to the heavens and say, okay, like, you know, inspire me, and, you know, like, tell me what to play now. No, I mean, we go back to the stuff that we already know. So we can practice these types of things and start to bring them into our repertoire. All right, so, let's see. Let me take one from Leon here. All right, Leon Lightfoot. How should I practice to get my left hand totally independent from my right? I'm interested in stride piano and walking bass lines. I'm also interested in bebop jazz playing. Okay, interesting. Kind of two separate things there, but cool. And then right above it, Cadge Thomas 6 for accompanying, how to work on combining stride type left hand with walking bass lines and fills. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I am not a stride player, in that, you know, I could sit down and kind of fake it, but like those cats like Art Tatum and stuff, you know, they really know how to, you know, like play stride. So, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm probably in the same boat as many of you, just trying to like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? Well, First of all, don't overcomplicate stride. That's the lesson that I've learned. When taking a look at some of the Fats Waller stuff, I noticed that, you know, like like putting in these tensions of 9s, sharp 11s and stuff like that, he's really not doing a lot of that stuff. A lot of it is much more straight, easy chords. And what's cool about that is those easier block chords in inversions, all right? Those easier block chords are a little bit easier to get to, but then also it's kind of cool because it unclutters the harmony. So, for instance, if I'm just going to do, you know, like, I'm just going to stay in the C because I don't want to move to a bunch of different chords. It's going to get confusing for me. So let me just do that part of Ain't Misbehavin'. So you see how I'm going from the root to the C6 chord, and then I go down to the fifth to the C6 chord, right? That is your basic pattern for stride right there, right? So it's like root, chord, fifth chord. You got to get that pattern down first. If you don't know that pattern, then don't move on to anything else, right? But there are a lot of little walk-ups and stuff like that you can do, right? You know, chromaticism, and it's very much follows the same rules as our bass lines, okay? So we start just by doing that. A good song is Ain't Misbehavin'. I have that in the members area. You can also just do this on a blues. Blues are always a nice place to come back to work on a concept because the blues is pretty uncomplicated in terms of harmony. So when doing the blues, rather than doing, listen to this. This is what I find really interesting. So here I have my blues with my 9th in there, right? But take a listen to these two and you tell me which you like better. Okay, now listen to this. There, it's so interesting that 13th and that 9th versus the 5th and the root. I personally like this sound on that stride because hear how it uncomplicates the harmony? Listen to just the left hand. That versus this. Hear that right there? See how much more tension is added there? Versus that. See that? Just root, chord, fifth, chord. The right hand, basically doing a lot of that pentatonic, you know, let me do it down here. Maybe throwing in that E flat. On the F7, I can do just the 7th, the 3rd, and the 5th, okay? I try and keep the chords simple. So I would suggest, if you're trying to get that stride stuff down, you should be able to do this like kind of a simple blues like this, right? I would start with just some very simple notes, like maybe just that, the C, E flat, G, and A, okay? Use those 4 notes, all right? Or maybe your first 4 notes of your blues scale, and then mostly focus on the left hand. So there's the C7 on F, and then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go F like this, right, and then go to this C right here rather than coming down here because it's a lot closer. See how much closer it is to this chord rather than having to come all the way down here. And then back to C, G, there's a G7 chord. F, and I could do other inversions too, but notice I'm not bringing in the 9s, I'm just making them kind of simple chords. And then easy, just trying to, you know, get the feel. So I would start there. Once you can do that and you feel kind of comfortable with that, you can start to speed that up so you get... And now here, when you do this, don't get... When you do that, don't get, you're going to stay loose. Notice I'm staying loose, all right? And in addition to that, I'm not getting overly worked up about hitting wrong notes. Go back in the video. You should slow it down. You're going to see wrong notes all over the place. That's the great thing about video now. You get to see all of my mistakes. Yay! Yeah, there's mistakes in there, all right? I'm not going to lie to you. But when you hear it live, it sounds fun. You know, it's like, again, it's the expression thing. I don't have to go into that anymore, but you got it. So, light and not, it's light not only here, but it's light here and in my heart as well. I'm just staying light with it. I'm not getting worked up about hitting a wrong note, okay? Because when doing this, you'll notice that, like those players that do stride, you know, it's funny, like, we'll take the kids down to Disney, and there's a guy outside who plays like stride piano, dresses up, and he's a real great player. And you watch him, he's hitting wrong notes, you know. But it's like, the thing is, he's just sitting there, like with a smile on his face, he's having fun, and you know, and it's like, and even though he hits a wrong note now and again, it's part of the style actually. That little bit of grit sounds good in the style, right? It's kind of like the distortion on the guitar or whatnot, okay? So be careful about not trying to make it too perfect. This style shouldn't be sloppy. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of incredible players, but that little bit of like grit to it adds to the flavor. Okay. All right. So let's see. Oh yeah, there's a great book on the topic Willie is speaking right now, Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner. You know, to be honest with you, I've never read his book, but I have heard great things about the book. So, and then if you guys haven't listened to Kenny Werner, hey-o, yeah, that cat can play, yes. Leonard Washington, Willie, do you have a good way of developing a vocabulary of chords so as to get a quick handle on a lead sheet? One of the absolute best ways of creating a vocabulary of chords for yourself is playing tunes, right? That might seem overly simplistic, like, well, yeah, no, it's really good because a lot of times, you know, students will work on chords and all 12 keys and all this kind of stuff, but the problem is that that's not how we play music. So if you start working on, let's say you're doing like, you know, minor 7 chord voicings, you know, let me just go chromatically, and I'm going to go through all of them chromatically, like, you know, go through all of them like this, you know, the left hand down here. The problem is when we get to an actual song, then it kind of falls apart. And maybe you know, I'm not saying you specifically, Leonard, but you know, as players, we've noticed that, where it's like, oh gee, you know, I can practice something, but when I get to playing a song, it's like it all falls apart. Why does it all fall apart? And oftentimes it's because we practice something in a bubble. We like practice it like it has nothing to do with music, you know? It's like, let me practice this. You know, I'm going to do it all 12 keys. I'm going to do it with a metronome. I'm going to do it, you know, 20 minutes a day. But then when I get to a live situation, I got to play it on a gig. It's like, I can't do it, right? And often I find that the reason that I can't do that is because I practice something out of context, right? When you're practicing chords, how are you going to play chords? You're not going to play them just like, unless you're playing a modal tune, you're not going to play just a C minor chord over and over and over and over again, you know? You're going to like move from this chord to another chord to another chord to another chord. So one of the best ways of creating that vocabulary is take a song, whatever song it is. I was doing before, right? right? Our love is here to stay. Do 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 do. Boo doo be da. Zuba da da da. Dee da 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 da. Da 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 do da do da do da ba. So you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of like, having fun with the melody, and kind of making fun of myself, but kind of humming the melody along and just playing those rootless chord voicings down there. Now if I wanted to, I could work on the bass line. I could go through, and I was playing this a little too low, but go through all these chords, move myself down here, and go through each of these chords, and I'm just taking a song and a progression and applying, playing the chords of that progression. So now